From the Dursleys, he received a £1 note. He didn't get anything at all from the Potters. Theo received mountains of candy from his brother Alex, from Neville, and of course from Harry, but nothing from his father, for which he actually seemed somewhat relieved. Around lunchtime, Theo and Harry made their way down to the great hall for the Christmas feast. The hall was filled with dozens of trees, all wondrously decorated. The normal 4 house tables were gone, as was the raised dais and the faculty table that normally sat upon it. Instead, there was one long table in the center of the room, filled to the creaking with food. By tradition, everyone who remained in the castle at Christmas ate together. The 2 Slytherins made their way down to the far end of the table and took their seats next to a few upper-year Ravenclaws who they didn't know, but introductions were quickly made. The 4 Weasley brothers, Lily and Jim, sat at the opposite end, although the twins and Percy all waved to Harry as he sat. Those faculty members who remained at the castle sat in the middle. Just as the feast was starting, James Potter entered, kissed his wife, presented the git with a big box in gold foil and sat down, all without ever looking even once in Harry's direction, a feat which actually required obvious and deliberate effort on his part. Harry just shook his head in amusement. A few minutes later, the doors burst open again, and to Harry's pleasant surprise, Neville came in, accompanied by his grandmother. And still in her stuffed vulture hat, the 2 stopped off to wish Dumbledore and the other faculty members a Merry Christmas and then made their way to the far end where Harry and Theo sat. Neville gave the 2 a big hug and then introduced them to the deeply intimidating Augusta Longbottom. She explained that in light of
recent events,
she had thought it diplomatic to dispense with the usual Longbottom family Christmas they customarily shared with Algy's children and grandchildren. Both Harry and Theo bowed respectfully and kissed the woman's knuckles in the traditional manner. She registered her approval and then eyed Theo somewhat severely.
"You are the son of Tiberius Nott, I take it,"
she said imperiously. He swallowed deeply.
"I am his younger son, yes, ma'am."
"I must confess, Master Nott, that I do not approve of your father."
He grimaced, but did not lower his gaze.
"If you will forgive the impertinence, ma'am, I don't much approve of him either."
The old woman fixed him with a gimlet eye, and then she smiled.
"My grandson informs me that the House of Longbottom owes you a debt. I wish you to understand that this debt is owed to you, and not to the House of Nott. Furthermore, should circumstances ever warrant it, the House of Longbottom offers you sanctuary."
She turned to include Harry.
"That offer extends to you as well, Harry Potter."
The 2 boys bowed respectfully and offered their thanks. Privately, Harry hoped that things wouldn't degenerate to the point that he'd need sanctuary with the Longbottoms, but who knew what the future held. Anyway, it was good to know that Theo had a safe house if necessary. Harry also noticed that at the far end of the table, James was finally unable to ignore them any longer, and he was visibly upset to see Madame Longbottom and her grandson merrily eating Christmas dinner with 2 Slytherins while ignoring the Potters completely. At the end of the feast, the Longbottoms said their goodbyes. They were heading to St. Mungo's to visit Neville's parents, as was their Christmas tradition, and made for the door. Harry was surprised to see James and Lily following after her, dragging an annoyed Jim behind them. He was half tempted to follow, but he assumed Neville would owl him later with a rundown if anything interesting was said. He did notice that Professor McGonagall was staring after them with a fairly venomous look in her eye. In the foyer of the Great Hall, the Potters caught up with Madame Longbottom and her grandson.
"Madame Longbottom, sorry, I just didn't want you and your grandson to leave without wishing you a happy Christmas,"
said James jovially.
"I don't know that we've ever been formally introduced. I'm James Potter and this is my wife Lily. And of course, this is our son, Jim Potter. Lily and I were great friends with Frank and Alice."
"Really, I wasn't aware, Lord Potter. I do recall that Frank had mentioned you in passing during his school days, though you were a few years behind him. And my recollection was that Alice was to be the godmother of your twins, while Lady Potter was to be the godmother of little Neville. But then, I never heard from either of you after Frank and Alice were injured. And of course, when you felt the need to send your young heir away, you never inquired as to whether he might be welcome in the House of Longbottom rather than being sent off to live with Muggles. So, naturally, I assumed that I must have been mistaken on the matter.
James coughed and adjusted his collar, which suddenly seemed too tight, while Lily looked stricken.
Madame Longbottom,
James said,
I apologize for any offense we have given you through our failure to maintain contact. As for Harry, we made what we thought was the best decision at the time. Regarding Neville, it is true that we should have been more proactive with Lily's role as godmother, but no paperwork had ever been filed making her role official, and we felt it inappropriate to intrude after the Wisengamot had already made its decision about regency and guardianship. That said, we would like to make it up to the House of Longbottom now and hopefully construct a new alliance with you. We're hosting a New Year's Eve party next week, and we would be honored if you and Neville could attend. Several of Neville's schoolmates will be there.
Is Harry coming?
asked Neville mildly. James's eye twitched. Jim actually snorted and started to say something when Lily dug her fingernails so hard into his shoulder that he nearly hissed in pain.
Harry has decided to stay at the castle for the entire holidays rather than coming home.
She said. Neville's expression darkened a bit at that. He knew that Potter Manor had never even been offered as an option for Harry. It was Hogwarts or the Dursleys.
Oh, that is a pity,
said Augusta.
In any case, I believe that Neville and I have other plans for New Year's, perhaps another time.
I hope so. James took Augusta's hand, which she proffered rather stiffly, and kissed it before turning to leave.
Oh, Lord Potter.
He turned back to the old woman, who stepped in very close to him, as if to whisper a secret for his ears only.
My son Frank never liked you,
she said quietly and dangerously.
He thought you were spoiled and arrogant, and he was incensed that neither McGonagall nor Dumbledore would do anything to rein in you, and that gang of bullying thugs with whom you surrounded yourself. Alice practically had to drag him to your wedding, and Alice herself was utterly baffled as to why her sensible and intelligent friend would ever agree to marry you in the first place. I just thought you should know all that before you embarrass yourself further by asserting a close friendship with people who can no longer speak for themselves.
And with that, Augusta Longbottom turned and led a beaming Neville away from a humiliated James Potter and his family. Once they were through the doors, Neville spoke.
Have I mentioned lately how awesome you are, Gran?
Tosh, Neville, I've gotten entirely too soft in my old age. 20 years ago I'd have hexed his bits off.